I spend more time explaining and re-explaining the budget and the spending plan than I do anything else. So I'm making this recording, and hopefully this will make it easier to understand and make the whole process more clear. The budget is the total amount that a participant in the self-determination program will be able to spend per year on their needed services and supports. The spending plan is how the funds from the budget will be spent on services in the self-determination program in those 12 months. The directive from DDS says that person-centered planning must be used to develop the IPP, which identifies the type and amount of services and supports to achieve the planned outcomes and ensure the participants' health and safety. After the individual budget amount is determined, the participant must develop a plan to use the available funds to meet their goals and objectives. So the amount is determined in the traditional system, and then it transfers to the self-determination system. That's so you take the traditional budget, traditional services budget, and then transition it to the self-determination spending plan. So in my example, I'm going to call my client Bob, and in the last 12 months, Bob's services were impacted by COVID-19. His mother didn't want strangers in the house, so they stopped using respite, and they only used 16 hours of respite for the entire year. And Bob stopped going to his day program. He did the Zoom classes for about a month, but he was so upset that he couldn't actually see his friends in person that his mother stopped logging him onto the computer. And she's been working from home and is about to go back to her office. And Bob's program is getting ready to go back to in-person next month. So the budget starts with the traditional services budget starts with the actual amount that was spent in the last 12 months. So, and it does not include any COVID-related special services. So if you received the special assistance daycare hours or anything like that, that will not be added into your self-determination budget. That was just, during COVID. So in Bob's case, he has 24 hours of month of respite, which is 288 hours a year, and the agency gets $22 an hour. Well, he actually used 16 hours for the entire year, so there was $352 spent on respite. And his day program at an adult development center is $68 a day. There's 260 days in the calendar year that could have been used, but he actually used 40 days the entire year. And so that was only $2,720. So his starting budget is $3,072. So at any time, a participant can request their consumer cost statement from their service coordinator. So that way you can know how much was actually spent for your child or adult in the past 12 months. This is a legally required statement, and it's provided annually by the regional center, and it breaks down how much was expended for the individual for the fiscal year. An individual's budget amount cannot exceed the amount that services would have cost if the individual was not in the self-determination program. So some regional centers are stuck on this definition of budget neutral, and they believe a person's budget should be what was actually spent in the last 12 months. And you may have asked for a service in the past or even described something you needed but didn't know the official name of the service, and your service coordinator didn't offer you the service or verbally told you no. And just so you know, there's never a no until you receive it in writing, and a written no is called a letter of action. And a letter of action allows you to file a fair hearing and fight for that service. So services can be added to the budget when they support a goal in the person-centered plan. The IPP team has to also agree, and the person would have received that service even if they didn't go into the self-determination program. So needed services in the IPP that are not used go into the unmet needs section. Identifying a need for a service that was not identified before or had not been addressed in the participant's prior IPP. And there's other reasons that services aren't used, not just COVID. I mean, sometimes the service providers don't have staffing, or the participants on a waiting list for a spot to open up. The respite worker showed up obviously impaired on drugs or alcohol, and the parents sent them away. The participant couldn't find a provider who could work the hours they needed, or COVID-19 caused the program, to close in person, or the participant didn't want strangers in their home. So the definition of change in circumstances is life changes and needs change. So leaving school or transition program and moving into adult services, losing a job or getting a job, getting sick or getting better, behavioral changes or medical needs arise, family structure changes, there's a divorce or a death in the family, moving into independent living or moving back in with their parents, and parents going back to work. And these are just a few of the examples of changes in circumstances. So the unmet needs are needed services in the IPP that were not used, needs that were not addressed needs that were not addressed in the participant's prior IPP. And many of my families didn't even know that some services even existed, or they had asked for them and their service coordinator verbally told them no, or brushed them off, or didn't even respond. And some of my families never really told the truth of what life was like with their child or adult's behavior. And many of these families are of other national origins, and they're afraid if they tell the regional center of things their child is doing that could be dangerous, that their child is going to be removed from their home. But they could be receiving support and assistance in dealing with those behaviors. So it's really important to relay to the regional center actual things that are happening in your life. So in the unmet needs area of Bob's budget, we're going to add in the hours of respite that were previously unused. Bob wants to stay at his adult developmental center because he has a lot of friends there, and his mother's going back to work in her office. Well, she's had to leave work for the past year since he transitioned into his day program to pick him up at 3 o'clock and finish her work from home. Well, adult daycare can allow her to stay at work till 5 and not have to worry that her son will be unsafe home alone. Every person over the age of 18, even if they're still in a school transition program, is entitled to independent living services to be able to learn to cook, clean, and create a budget and more. This is a very simple example, and there's more services that could be identified. And that's why each plan is individualized for the person's needs. But I wanted to keep it simple for this example. Now, these increases only happen if the IPP team agrees. And that's why it's important that the person-centered plan be written to show these services are necessary for the person to achieve their goals. And I do want to say that the day program could be changed. I only have a few clients who want to stay in their adult development center programs. Most have transitioned into a one-to-one job coach situation where they can seek and receive support at a paying job or even start their own business. There's also additional services available to adults other than what I've listed here. That's why it's critical to have a person-centered plan performed by someone who has experience with your regional center to know what is available and the knowledge of how to write those goals to provide for those needs. So after adding in the actual amount spent in the 12 months to the unmet needs that are identified now in Bob's budget, his budget is now $44,920 per year. When Bob enters self-determination, his $44,920 will then move from traditional services into his spending plan for the self-determination program. Any service or item that is to be purchased in self-determination must support a goal that is written in the person-centered plan. I've had people come to me after they wrote their person-centered plan, or they had Regional Center write their plan, and it had included the what's important to, what's important for, what people like and admire about the participant, and some great information about the person. But they were all missing goals. And without goals, there's no services to support the goals. So the spending plan must identify the cost of each service and the support that will be purchased with Regional Center funds. And this includes the cost for the FMS, which is a required service for all self-determination participants. And participants may require support from others, such as an independent facilitator, to negotiate with providers to determine the cost for each services, or to manage their staff. In addition to wages, costs for employee benefits and payroll taxes must be included when determining the cost of each service. And the total spending plan amount cannot exceed the individual budget amount, not even by 1 penny. So you also must use generic services first. So if the person's in school, any therapy would be provided by the school. If insurance has to be accessed first as well. And IHSS, the Department of Rehab, those are other generic services. But if you've received a denial from any of those services, you can present that to your service coordinator to show that now Regional Center is the payer of last resort. So there's 3 major categories in the spending plan. The living arrangement, which is our services to help you live in your home. Employment and community participation, which are services to support you in the community. And health and safety, which are services to help you stay healthy and safe. It is an adult development program. He has a lot of friends there and he enjoys going to it. And he's an adult. He doesn't need a babysitter anymore. So we're going to convert his respite into personal assistance hours. Respite is defined as in your home. Your respite provider is not supposed to take you places. So his personal assistant can take him places. And he's going to hire his next door neighbor, Joe. They grew up together and they both really like each other. And Joe's going to be his personal assistant. He has a health and fitness goal because he gained the COVID-19. So he's going to sign up for a healthy cooking class and take a karate class for exercise. He's also going to purchase a Peloton bike so he can exercise at home, and he will have the membership for the Peloton classes as well. Bob's spending plan. Remember, he has $44,920 in his budget. Well, he's going to stay in his adult development program. His friends are there and he really likes it. And in the budget, there's 52 weeks of the program are included. But his family takes a 2-week vacation every summer. And during the weeks of Thanksgiving and Christmas, they go visit grandma. So he's only going to be in the program 48 weeks of the year. So we included 48 weeks of the program at $14,960. So then the personal assistant, Joe, is going to earn $18 an hour, and he's going to work 20 hours a week for 48 weeks at $19 per. And then the personal assistant, Joe, is going to earn $18 an hour for 20 hours a week. In self-determination, you have to pay, when you're the employer, you have to pay your share of the employer costs. So that's an additional $3.78. And that pays for his taxes, his Social Security, withholding, all of that. So one thing a lot of people don't realize is when you get your paycheck, you have taxes withheld, but your employer also paid a portion of those taxes. So that is where this $3.78 comes in. So that's a total of $21.78 an hour times 20 hours a week times 48 weeks a year. So the total amount it's going to cost to have Joe as the employee is going to be $20,908 a year. So to calculate it all together, we have the adult development program, the personal assistant, mileage reimbursement for Joe, because he's going to be driving Bob all over the place to the cooking class, and we have the cost for the cooking class, to a karate class. He needs and he's also going to be taking him just to do fun things, go to the movies. They both have Disney passes, so they're going to go to Disneyland. So he's going to be driving him places. Oh, and they both like to play miniature golf too. So Joe's going to get mileage reimbursement for the places that he takes Bob, up to 2,000 miles per year at 58 cents per mile. And by the way, that number fluctuates based on whatever the government says the mileage reimbursement is. So it's not always 58 cents per mile. Bob also needs to buy a gi and sparring gear for his karate class. And he's going to buy the Peloton bike and the monthly membership for the classes online too. So at the time, his budget is just under budget. So his total budget is $44,920. And his spending plan is just under budget by $2.32. So to review how we came up with a budget, we had Bob's actual services that were used in the prior 12 months of $3,072. Then we added in the unused hours for the respite in the Adult Development Center, and plus the unmet needs we identified, which were the daycare hours and the independent living services. Then we added the actual amount spent in the last 12 months to the unmet needs to get Bob's budget of $44,922 per year. So each service in the spending plan falls into one of the three larger budget categories. A participant may annually transfer up to 10% of the funds that are in any of these three larger categories to another category without approval from the regional center. Well, that's what the law says, but the reality is the regional centers have been wanting justification for moving it even in the same category. So if you wanted to move money from technology services to community integration supports in the employment and community integration section, they're requiring that. In the future, that probably won't be an issue, but right now, because it's still a new program, they are requiring meetings for that. But the way it's supposed to be is you can transfer anything in the same category without issue. But if you wanted to transfer from living arrangement to health and safety, and it's more than 10% of the total budget, then you would have to have a meeting with Regional Center for that. Okay, so unique services. Well, while Bob's new self-determination program isn't that creative, I wanted to give you some examples of other things my clients have received and things I've heard of others receiving. But remember, each item or service must be supporting a goal in the person-centered plan. So unique services include personal emergency response systems, Apple Watches, out-of-home respite or overnight camp, which goes towards overnight camp. Under health, fitness supports like personal trainers, gym memberships, treadmills, stationary bikes, fitness equipment, any equipment somebody needs to participate. I have one client who got a swing set in their backyard because that's part of her exercise, climbing and swinging, and they can't go to the park anymore, so they got a swing set and a play set in their backyard for exercise. Employment supports can include Toastmasters memberships to teach public speaking, one-to-one job coaching, mileage reimbursement for the job coach. It can also, if you're starting a micro enterprise, it can cover some business startup costs and things like that. Non-medical transportation, so you can use Uber or Lyft if you need to go someplace and you're not able to access the bus. And social and recreational activities. And there's a whole slew of things there. Now, I want to I have horseback riding lessons on here because I want to say if it's horse therapy, it won't be covered. But if it's a horseback riding lesson that happens to be at a horse therapy place, it can be covered in self-determination. Swimming lessons, art classes, I could go on and on. There's so much more. I have a client with ukulele lessons and singing lessons, and another one who has an acting coach. Well, that would actually be under employment supports, but it's, the list is long and it's individualized for each person. So I want to talk about the T word, therapy. Most therapy is not going to be covered, especially under the age of 21. And in order to get any therapy covered, you have to have a denial from your insurance and from Medi-Cal, if you have Medi-Cal. It has to be reviewed every 6 months, and assessments will be required to continue the service. And when services are deemed no longer necessary, they will be discontinued and they will be taken out of your budget. So, I think I already talked about the hippotherapy. Same thing with art therapy. Call it art lessons. It's not therapy. So is this my budget for the rest of my life? No, your budget will change as your needs change. Services can be added based on changes in needs, and that could be in the middle of the year. You don't have to wait till the end of your self-determination program. But services can also be removed based on change in needs. So if you have ABA and you no longer need it, they can take that money out of your budget. So is this my budget for the rest of my life? No, your budget will change as your needs change. Services can be added based on changes in needs, and that could be in the middle of the year. You don't have to wait till the end of your self-determination program. But services can also be removed based on change in needs. So if you have ABA and you no longer need it, they can take that money out of your budget. So I hope this was very helpful and helped shed some light on how the budget and the spending plan work. And if you have any individual questions, I'm happy to answer them. And thank you for taking the time to watch.